Welcome to MLS Monday. Sydney and Henry with you. I don't know what happened. There we go. Now we
Um,
got video. Now we have
are
video,
we?
Henry.
Okay. We
Let's
are
try this
here.
again. Let's try this again. MLS Monday. Sydney and Henry with you as we look back, Henry, on Match Day 21. It's hard to believe we're already talking about Match Day 21, and before you know it, we'll be at the end of the season. But yeah, we have Match Day 21 storylines to talk about. We have Club World Cup to talk about. Were you watching PSG versus Inter Miami on Sunday afternoon, Henry?
Indeed, I was.
Ooh,
Yeah, it's
boy.
part of the MLS coverage, and we have a little group chat, and it just like
Yeah.
it started. The hype was up here, and then it just kind of.
Well, so I was there with Tyler covering the match for Scarves and Spikes, and obviously, as you might imagine, a lot of Messi representation at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, chanting his name, yelling his arms, cheering every time he touched the ball, which wasn't a lot, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And of course, we'll talk about MLS Matchday 21 storyline. San Diego winning again. We'll talk about that. Nashville, 11 straight matches unbeaten after beating DC. We'll chat about that. Colorado choking against New England. I feel like there's a little joke in there about a team holding a big lead against a team from New England, but I won't tell it. And
Nope.
then the Chicago Fire.
End the stream.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Sorry. Please forgive me. And then Chicago getting off the snide, finally winning a match at Soldier Field just the second time. Do you know who their only other home win is against, Henry? The Chicago Fire?
I
You
do.
can say it. You can say it. This is safe space.
It's Atlanta.
How would you like to? How would you like to have that designation? The only other team that the Chicago Fire have beaten this year, outside of Charlotte FC, is Atlanta United.
The two southeastern teams, the two rivals.
Exactly. I bet Berhalter will be looking to play those two teams every single week from here on out. Maybe Nashville as well. Who knows? But no, we'll talk about that much more coming up. But let's start from the top. Let's start with Sunday afternoon. Inter Miami just getting humiliated by PSG 4-0. It wasn't, Henry, it wasn't even the match, really. I feel like we all figured that PSG was a heavy favorite. And no surprise that they won. They'll play Bayern Munich on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the quarterfinal.
What a game!
I know. That's a Champions League match.
Is that question? Is that the best game that will ever be played? Well, so far that has ever been played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
I think so. It has to be, right. I mean, these are two of the biggest clubs in the world. PSG, Bayern Munich, playing against each other. Certainly the biggest. And Tyler and I were talking about it the other day. You know, we have the Premier League Summer Series coming in, back to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, back to Atlanta, as it's been over the past few years. Those matches are friendlies. These matches coming up are this match against for PSG against Inter Miami, this match coming up against Bayern Munich. These are as good as it gets if you're a football fan, as far as competitive matches are concerned. But yeah, PSG Bayern Munich on Saturday at the Benz. We'll be there with our live pre-match show from the Nest for a Bar at the Signia by Hilton Hotel at about 10:05 Eastern time. So join myself, Tyler. Are you going, by the way? Will you be there?
I will not be able to go.
You won't be there.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so it'll be myself and Tyler there at Signia by Hilton, Atlanta, I should say, 10:05 Eastern time on Saturday afternoon before Inter Miami and PSG and Bayern Munich. It will be there on Tuesday as well before Palmeiras versus Dortmund. But a little bit of a housekeeping note out of the way. But no, it was Dortmund Monterrey. I don't know why I said Dortmund Palmeiras. I know why I had Palmeiras on my mind. But it's Dortmund Monterrey. Dortmund Monterrey will be there 7 p.m. Eastern time. Join us there live or watch on the Scarves and Spikes YouTube channel or wherever you get this podcast. Going back, though, PSG, Inter Miami. Like I was saying, Henry, we figured PSG would win pretty easily. I kind of expected that Inter Miami would give a little bit better of account of itself during the match, but I was wrong. They literally had none of the ball in the first half, and then when they did get the ball in the second half, PSG knew they were home and dry. They pretty much led their foot out the gas pedal, and the chances that Inter Miami were getting were the result of that. But the gulf was pretty wide between the two teams, and I think no surprise that Inter Miami have kind of crashed out in the way that they did.
Yeah, there's just levels to the game, and even sorry, I was going to say Luis Enrique, Javier Mascherano, head coach of Inter Miami, and Sergio Busquets, and a few of the other Inter Miami players that spoke to media afterwards. They admitted, right, this is a team that's just on another level. Potentially the best team in the world right now, Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah.
Champions League winner. They completely battered Inter Milan in the final, 5-0. And so that kind of sets the tone for you, right? When you go into a Champions League final and you completely obliterate your opponent, who, by the way, toppled.
Lost.
Yeah, and
Inter Milan lost again.
Lost again.
Yeah.
But eliminated Barcelona, one of the best, Barcelona teams of recent years, and a few others on its way to the final. You know that they're different, and you see it when they play, right? It's just it's a machine, the way that PSG plays. And I was talking about it to some of the folks in some of the various discords that I'm in, and some of the group chats that I'm in. Just looking at the way that they press and the way that they move and the way that they methodically, like, they seek out, they know where the play is developing, and they know the exact moment to press the ball carrier to force a turnover in a really, really bad spot. In Miami's defense, we already knew that's their weakness, right?
Yep.
And so they just exposed it again and again and again and again. And honestly, I mean, fair play to them for doing it. I mean, that's what they're good at. That's how they won the Champions League, is by constantly just pinning back opponents and getting in their faces with pressure, and just playing some very beautiful soccer while they're at it. Miami didn't really stand the chance, and they really didn't. Noah Allen has to go off due to an injury. You end up bringing Tomas Aviles. He immediately gets a yellow card 7 seconds into the game.
He didn't have the best first half.
And then he scores an own goal. An own goal goes in off him. And it just gets worse and worse from there. So yeah, PSG very deserved going through. Miami, it's a learning experience, man. It's a learning experience for Miami. It's a learning experience for MLS. Two MLS teams faced Paris Saint-Germain. Again, arguably the best team in the world right now. Seattle Sounders and Miami. Both of them lost. Not surprising. But now they have that experience. You know what I'm saying? And MLS can hold its own on the world stage. It's still a long way from Europe, obviously. But I think MLS overall had a really good showing this tournament.
What does that say, though, about Seattle, that they only fell to PSG 2-0, that Miami goes out and craps the bed in the first half in Atlanta? I'm kind of half joking, but before the show, Henry, I was reading something that Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who, Zlatan's never shy of an opinion anyway, but he said, Messi didn't win, but team lost, right? And he said that Messi is Messi, but the rest of the team is just like statues. And yes, there's definitely credence to what Zlatan said, because the overall level of play for for Inter Miami wasn't what it needed to be, right? It can't be all Messi. Of course, you have Suarez, you have Busquets, Alba, who obviously are toward the back end of their careers, right? But you have to elevate your level of play if you're a team like Miami, stacked up with the odds stacked against you, against arguably the best team in the world, like you said. What does this say about MLS as a whole? How does it kind of improve its fortunes in the future? Next iteration of Club World Cup being 2029. So you'd like to think that MLS hopefully will be a little more robust as far as how its teams will do in that iteration. But right after the final whistle, you saw the kind of expected reaction. Oh, MLS needs to expand its rosters. You need to pay its players better, this, that, and the other. I mean, it's true. It's true. And that conversation has been brought up numerous times, and it's easy to just kind of, you know, go for the low hanging fruit when something like this happens. But at the same time, I mean, it's PSG. I mean, what did you expect? I think I said for the record 4-2. No, I didn't say 4-2, but I think I said what 2-1 or something like that. PSG, little naive as far as how I saw this match coming together, but obviously PSG head and shoulders really above any team in the competition, and I feel like Miami will come away hoping that or wishing that they had given PSG a little bit better of a match. But at the end of the day, I mean, talent is talent, and talent certainly won out against Inter Miami on this day.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the budget aspect, the monetary uh, aspect of it all, and I think there's a little bit more to that than perhaps you were hinting at.
Yeah.
We're talking about. You want to guess how much transfer market values Inter Miami's roster at right now? Go ahead, take a
Gotta be
guess.
like 30 million because Messi's what making 20 million. So it's at 30, 40 million right now.
Okay, it's actually 66.18 million euros. They
Okay.
have it in euros.
Yeah, yeah.
So 66.18 million euros. Uh, do you know what PSG is valued at?
Gotta be like what? At least half a billion, right?
More.
More a billion on the
Just
dot.
about. I'll get the exact number, but
Understandable.
it's let me
but,
see.
yeah,
But
but
but,
I
but
mean,
it's 1.13 billion euros,
yeah,
and
it's
that is a
unrealistic.
massive difference
No,
because
it's unrealistic. Yeah,
we're talking about an Inter Miami team that okay, yes, has Messi, okay, yes, has Busquets, has Suarez, has all that, but you just mentioned it. They are way past their primes.
yeah,
These are players that are towards the end of their careers. They're not as agile. They're not as they don't have as much stamina. They are not at the peak of their powers. They can still do
right.
amazing things like we've seen in MLS, right? And their class there. But when you're talking about going against, you know, Kvaratskhelia, who is
Mhm.
one of the best attackers right now in his best, time in his prime. Talking about Hakimi still at the peak of his powers. We're talking about so many different players that are just,
Donnarumma.
yeah, Donnarumma, one of the best goalkeepers in the world. You can't compare, and there's just too much quality, and that's because, well, first of all, the team has the resources for it, and they can afford to spend millions upon
Yeah,
millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on the best players in the world, right?
yeah,
Miami can't do that. I mean, you have 3DP slots.
yeah,
Go and use them how, and I think they're using them to the best that they can. I mean, you can't do much better than Messi, right?
yeah.
And that's a model for other clubs as well who, those are the spots dedicated to their best players and usually they're in the attack. That makes sense. But until MLS really expands that and allows its teams to use the full extent of their financial capabilities and really go out and spend and bolster their rosters, yes, it's going to take away the parity of the league,
Mhm.
but that's a trade-off. You got to decide. Do you want parity in within the league, or do you want competitiveness and
Right.
dominance out of the league in international competition like CONCACAF Champions Cup, like the Club World Cup? You got to decide. There's a trade-off there.
Yeah.
And I think MLS, to take that next step, it needs to open the gates a little bit and really let these clubs make the most of their resources, even if it means you're going to have some elites. You already have some elite clubs right now. You
Yeah.
have LAFC, who is perennially a contender. You have Seattle, for the past decade, for most of the past decade, has been one of the more dominant teams. You have Columbus, that for the past few years has been one of the best teams.
Yeah.
Miami, if they continue what they're doing, they were going to continue to be for the next 5 years at least one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah.
And so you the parity is kind of gone not gone, but it's a little bit more reduced now than it was
Yeah.
before. At this point, I say just screw it, right?
Yeah.
Go, don't hamstring your teams anymore. Let them really build themselves up, and then maybe for future iterations of the World Cup, you can really go toe to toe with some of these teams. Because if anything, this Club World Cup showed that they can go some rounds with teams from South America.
Mm.
With Seattle against Botafogo, that was a game that Seattle should have won, in my opinion. They
Yeah.
deserve to win that game, and they're just unfortunate. You know, you don't take your chances, but they had a good showing in that game. Inter Miami beat Porto. That's credit to them. LAFC managed to hold their own for the most part against Chelsea. So these are things where if you give these teams a little bit more freedom financially, so MLS can take a massive leap forward in the years to come.
Sure. And, just to wrap this up before we move on, it's easy, like I said, to kind of shoot fist in the barrel and say, I'm listening to XYZ. I'm not saying you're doing this, but just the low-hanging fruit that a lot of these pundits are picking. There's definitely credence to what they're saying, right? And like I said, it's been a conversation that we've had numerous times in the past. Hopefully MLS can finally do it. I mean, you have the World Cup coming up next year, right? And there's still been no indication of any serious movement as far as roster is concerned. Maybe that comes in 2026. Who knows? But at some point, you have to make some steps toward that. And MLS has done that, but it's not big enough. But hopefully, we get to a point where the shackles are taken off the clubs and they can kind of spend a little bit more than they are right now. So that was Inter Miami losing to PSG. Inter Miami, of course, out of the Club World Cup. PSG moving on to take on Bayern Munich on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, high noon at the Bez in Atlanta. Winner moves on to the semifinals. All right, let's talk about MLS. Matchday 21, Henry. San Diego FC. I am buying stock big time in San Diego FC. I mean, I should have been.
You mean you didn't have it before?
I did. I did.
What are we doing, man?
Shares. I did in small shares, but I am going all in on Mikey Vars's team. 14 goals in their last 4 matches after a 3-2 win over Dallas. I mean, this team just keeps winning, and I nobody expected them to be in this position. I feel like people are kind of expecting to shoot a drop early in the year, right? They lost 3 matches in a row to Colorado, Charlotte, and RSL. I imagine some fans were like, or some around MLS circles were like, oh, here we go. This is the drop off. But they didn't do that. And just a very confident performance despite going down 2-1 in the second half. Or I'm sorry, going to the locker room 2-1 to come back. Chico Lozano scores in the 77th, and Tomas Anhero scores deep in stoppage time. And San Diego escapes Dallas with a win. They just keep finding ways to win, and I don't know if this team isn't in the Supporters Shield discussion even further in the season. Let me ask you this. Mikey Varas, he has to be your coach of the year at this point, right?
Oh,
maybe.
That's a tough one for me to say right now. I mean, he's certainly a candidate, coming into the league and just immediately having that impact on an expansion side that has a lot of credit to it. But man, it's hard for me to still eliminate Jesper Sorensen, who even though, Vancouver isn't at the top of the Supporters Shield right now, they're 2 points off the lead and they have a game in hand. It's hard for me to not see, he comes into this team that for the past few seasons, mostly mediocre. Last season, kind of makes it into the playoffs and gets into that first round, but, comes into this team and immediately just goes on a tear. And you're leading the Supporters Shield. You are surprising everyone and playing some very, very good soccer.
Most goals scored in the league, too, 41.
Yeah. Man, But Vancouver, like, okay, if we're eliminating CONCACAF Champions Cup, San
Mhm.
Diego has, I think, a stronger argument at the moment.
Yeah.
But I can't ignore the fact that Jesper Sorensen gets this Vancouver team to the top of the Supporter Shield. They're very much in contention for it right now. Again, they have a game in hand. If they win that game, they are in the lead. And then CONCACAF Champions Cup on top of that. So for me, it's between those two right now. But again, still plenty of season left to see what
Yeah.
happens, who ultimately ends up winning that race. But yeah, I think Mikey Varas is definitely a good shout.
Yeah, I mean, in the case for Vargas too is, if you look at Vancouver, at least it's a little bit somewhat of a known quantity, right? They're not a new team. They have a number of players that were there last year that are still there this year. So maybe the case for Sorensen is that he's been able to raise the level of the team's play over what Vinny Sartini did during his last couple of years in Vancouver. So that's certainly a check in the box for Sorensen. That being said, San Diego, you're starting a team from scratch, and the cynic will say, "Oh, they have Chucky Lozano," which, yes, absolutely, he's one of the best players in the league, one of the best players in the hemisphere, right? But it takes a specific sort of coach to really tie the room together, really motivate his players. I mean, you can't just throw anybody in that locker room and expect results, right? You need somebody in there with fresh ideas, who commands respect, who is able to just be even handed with players and be able to manage inevitably the different personalities in that room. And Mikey Vars, based on where this team is in the standings, this deep in the season, they're still near the top of the Spurs Shield standings, right? That's certainly, he'll get his share of votes, and I wouldn't be surprised at this point if he ends up winning it. Now, Bradley Cardinell is another name you have to put out there. Sorensen certainly, BJ Callahan certainly, but again, those are kind of known quantities to the extent. I say maybe Cardinell, you give a little bit more of a look because of the changes on that roster, especially with Gottstag moving to Columbus. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable what San Diego has done this far of the season, and we'll see if it continues. They have Houston at home next, then they travel to Chicago, then Toronto, Vancouver, and Nashville. Very critical 3-match stretch for them at home at Snapdragon Stadium. They could really move further up the table if they continue in this form, and they will have the opportunity to do that against 3 of the more disappointing teams on the MLS schedule in Houston and Chicago, who, yeah, they're not bad, but they're not great either, and then TFC at home. So opportunity really for San Diego to make up even more points, get even more points, and move further up the table.
Of course. So we debated a little bit about coach of the year, but executive of the year for me, hands down, goes to Tyler Heaps,
Yeah.
sporting director of San Diego FC. Hit on all of the important signings for this team going into its expansion year. Anders Dreyer, smack home run. Chucky Lozano, big success. Even your depth. Okay, you're not going to believe this, but this was an insane stat when I saw.
I know
this.
what you're going to bring up.
Milan Iloski,
yeah,
center forward, has played 382 minutes in MLS, has 9 goals and an assist.
Do we add him to the U.S. men's national team striker pool?
What? He's got to
What
be
are
the
you
best
watching?
super sub striker in the league right now. Are you kidding me, dude? That's like a goal contribution every like 30 minutes.
Born in Escondido, California. Get him in the pool. Why not?
Whoa, dude. That's have him back up Brian White.
Yeah.
I'm down for that. Whatever he's doing it right. That's impressive.
That's incredible.
And yeah, again, huge credit to the San Diego front office for putting together just an amazing expansion team for San Diego. You've got the foundation. Just don't do what Atlanta did and throw it all away.
Yeah. That's the test, right? I mean, no, that's the test. Like, can they sustain it past year one? Obviously, year one is not finished yet, but can San Diego as an organization sustain this momentum year two, year three, year five, year 10? Southern California is a rich soccer market. You have the LA teams. You have, if you go further up the coast of Northern California, you have San Jose. And I don't think anybody expected that San Diego would be the better team out of that cluster of teams in California. But here you are, 21 match days in, and San Diego, you can legitimately be talking about them as a Supporter Shield winner. Now, cautionary tale, of course, you look at St. Louis, had an amazing first year. I've never really been able to get back to what they were. They're already on through two coaches, and the one they fired is near the top of the table, or at the top of the table of Philadelphia. So, whoops. But no, I mean that's a definitely a good point. Can they sustain it? Can they keep it going? Not just this year, but moving on to the future. Speaking of Bradley Cardinal, they lost again. Columbus beat the Union again.
Uh-oh.
This is 3 straight
That
wins.
wasn't in the plans.
Well, I don't
what was
say...
it? What was it? 11 games unbeaten for Philadelphia going into this game?
Yeah. And I don't want to say again because they drew Columbus 2-2 in the fixture at Subaru Park. But yeah, 11 matches unbeaten for Philadelphia until losing to the Crew at Lore.com Field. I mean, the Crew, they rumors of their demise have been greatly exaggerated, I guess. They went on that 6-match winless streak. Since then, wins against Vancouver, wins against Atlanta, which whatever. Now a win against Philadelphia. I don't think it ever went away, but the Crew are the Crew again. And 3 matches in a row. Who's to say they can be in the Supporters Shield picture when it's all said and done, right?
It's just very tight up at the top. Yeah. We're talking about, 6th and first place of the Supporters Shield is separated by 3 points.
Wow.
So it's a very, very close race. Anything can happen. There's still 14 games to go, if my calculations are correct. Mm. You've got plenty of time for some shakeups, plenty of time for some surprises. And I think this is one of the more fun Supporters Shield races that we've had in recent years. Yeah. It feels like, last year Miami was running away with it. It was point record after point record after point record. And when you have those types of seasons, they're usually not really close. But this time, it literally is anybody's game. And like we said, it could be Vancouver, who has a game in hand, could come up and take that spot. But again, you have so many quality teams that are chasing. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Columbus, they are back. I don't know if they've ever left. They lost. It's incredible that you could lose. Incredible that you could lose a player like Cucho Hernandez, who was an MVP finalist last season and had, I think it was more than 30 goal contributions last season, and still be in really good shape, all things considered, right? Yep. And they played. What would impress me so much is just that they can basically take a team apart in 2 passes. And they did that many times against Atlanta, but they did it especially in this goal against Philadelphia. It was 2 passes, basically, that led them to that goal. And it's just impressive the way that they're drilled, the way that Wilfried Nancy has this team organized. Yeah. That just shows hierarchy. That just shows a team that can really compete in this league. And so that's something that I have to really, really admire. And you gotta, you can't count them out of the Supporter Shield race, of MLS Cup, of anything, really.
My only concern with Columbus is Daniel Gazdag, just the 1 assist since being traded over from Philadelphia. We like to think that he will get right, and I feel like fans have been saying that just give him time, give him time, give him time. Is it too late or too early to be concerned about, hey, maybe this is not a system that benefits Daniel Gazdag? He thrived, of course, in Philadelphia under Jim Curtin. And then partially through the year in Philadelphia, they decided to ship him off to Columbus, where he's not affected the stat sheet really since he got there. Columbus has still won, right? They just won their third match in a row. But I think if they really want to create distance between themselves and the rest of the teams and really move up into that bunch of teams that you just talked about, like you said, the top 6 teams right now separated already 3 points. I think they're going to need Godstock to get going. Of course, they have terrific players outside of that. They have Schulte, who is injured, who is due back soon. But I think they're really going to need to find a way to unlock Godstock and try to get a way for him to get more involved in this system. Because I'm not saying they can't win unless they do, but this is a much better team, really head and shoulders above much of the teams in the supporter shield standings once he gets going.
Yeah, agreed for sure. And getting players like Schulte back, like Max Arfston. How about him? He's with the U.S.
Yeah.
men's national team. Goal and an assist in the
Who knew?
2-2 draw that ended up being a win over Costa Rica the other day. That and Arfston, that's why he got called up, because he's class and he's been very good for Columbus, and they're missing him, right? They're quote unquote missing him, even though they just won 3 games in a row. But he brings another dimension to the team, and you're gonna want him when you start going up against more of those top end teams like the Philadelphias, like eventually. I don't know if they still have to play Inter Miami or if they already played them twice. My mind is scrambled, but yeah, you're gonna want him, especially for what Leagues Cup is going to be, because that is potentially a ticket to CONCACAF Champions Cup, and you're defending your title, and then also the playoffs.
Yeah. So they've played Miami twice this year. Miami have won both times. It could be a playoff matchup. We'll see. But it's kind of building this point about supporter shield standings again. It's just amazing. I guess I didn't realize how bunched up it was at the top. I think that's your tier 1 teams right now: Philly, San Diego, Cincinnati, Vancouver, Nashville, Columbus. We'll talk about Cincy, Nashville, Vancouver in just a little bit here, or Cincy and Nashville, I should say. But I feel like tier B are your Minnesotas. Portland, Orlando are there behind Minnesota. I don't know if they will be a serious threat to win the supporter shield. And
Portland
then you have
probably
Miami.
drops off because Anthony's injured, and he was literally the magician of that team. I mean, David DaCosta has a lot of credit, but Anthony's just been on another level this season, and without them, they really drop a level.
Yeah. So you have them, Miami, 29 points, but they've only played 16 matches. So
what?
Maybe,
oh my gosh.
Exactly, because of the Club World Cup. So
4 games in hand.
So that's 12 points right there. Who's to say Miami can't?
They could literally jump into the shield race.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then New York is behind them with 20 matches played, 29 points. I don't know if New York is being looked at as a serious supporter shield contender, but yeah, pretty incredible. Like you said, it's a fun race and it's far from over. Very much far from over. Before we move on, let's take care of some business. ScarvesandSpikes.com, covering all things Atlanta United, win, lose, or draw. I know it's been tough times for Atlanta United.
Mostly lost.
Mostly lose. But no, we'll still be covering it. They, of course, take on DC United on Saturday. 4th of July weekend, we'll be covering that as well. So go to ScarvesandSpikes.com for our coverage. Patreon.com/ScarvesandSpikes. Subscribe starting at $1.17 a month. Help support the site. Get access to our Discord, bonus coverage, bonus content, audio, video that you won't get anywhere else. Follow me on X, SHWrites, on Blue Sky at SHWrites.bsky app, wherever it is. Henry is at HA on all social media platforms, pretty much. And we are on Scarves and Spikes on all social media platforms. Scarves are letter and Spikes on X. ScarvesandSpikes.com on Blue Sky. Scarves and Spikes on Instagram and Threads. And a reminder, we'll be at the Nest on 4 Bar inside the Signet by Hilton Hotel Tuesday night for Dortmund versus Monterrey. 7 p.m. We will be there 2 hours before kickoff. And then Saturday, before PSG Bayern Munich, 10:05 a.m. I'm sorry, 11:05 a.m. I said 10:05 a.m. early, but 11:05 a.m. on Saturday before PSG Bayern Munich Club World Cup quarterfinal match. We'll be streaming both of those if you're able to make it in person. But yeah, come on out, whether you're going to a match or not, and support what we're doing at Scars and Spikes. All right, let's talk about Cincinnati. We haven't talked about Cincinnati in a while, Henry. They're kind of heating up. Evander, us a brace for the second straight match. Columbus winning 3 straight matches, 2-1 over Orlando. Already talked about Orlando kind of spinning their wheels just a little bit. They haven't really been able to get over the hump, but Orlando maybe catching a little bit of fire. Maybe they are not a team to overlook as far as the Supporter Shield is concerned.
Well, I think for me, that game was all about Evander. It was the Evander show. And a lot of this season has been. I mean, we're talking about me so far. I'm feeling very good about having picked him as my MVP. But yeah, I mean, he's been freaking extraordinary. Fit right in. Was an upgrade over Lucho Acosta, which I did not think was possible. But yeah, he does everything. I mean, he's just in the right spots where he needs to be. He has the confidence, he has the swagger, he knows how to finish with ease, and he's just magical with the ball. And it shows right now. It's 11 goals and 6 assists this season.
Well,
7 assists. Sorry, yeah, was missing one. But yeah, he has been the engine for the Cincinnati team. It's a really good bit of business that they did to sign him with that cash for trade. What's it called? Trade? What?
Yeah,
cash for whatever we're calling it. The trade,
whatever.
The trade where you get a player and you give him cash, which should just be a trade, but whatever.
Intra-league transfers.
That thing. Very good business. 12 million is insane. I mean, other teams spend 13 million on a guy that doesn't really do much. But yeah, it's just a smart bit of business. He fits seamlessly into the team, and he does it all. Whether it's set pieces, that free kick. First of all, Pedro Galese, what are you doing, dude? Just standing, giving him the entire goal open. Very, very smart from Evander to take advantage and score. I know we in Atlanta have felt the pain of a similar free kick. Rocco Rios Nova, we remember you fondly. Also against Orlando, by the way. So that was actually our payback. That was our payback right there. Evander avenged us. But yeah, be it free kicks, be it just dribbling and getting into the box and finishing. Just he finds the ball and he knows what to do with it. And that, at the end of the day, is what makes teams great, is great players. And Evander is one of the best, and I still think he's going to be MVP this season.
Without Evander on that roster, Portland last year doesn't even get a sniff of the playoffs.
Not even close.
He single-handedly lifted that team, and
15 goals, 15 assists.
Yeah. And I feel like in another world, he's an MVP last year. He certainly got his votes, and he took votes away certainly from Messi. And part of that was the reason I feel like Lucho won MVP. I mean, he should have anyway, but I feel like Evander stealing some votes was certainly part of that. But he's been the player I think that Cincinnati expected he'd be, and more. Like you said, 11 goals, 17 assists, a goal contribution every match it averages out to. And I don't have the math in front of me, for 18 goal contributions in 1,490 minutes. That's pretty darn good. And just doing some quick napkin math here to see what that averages out to. So in any event, 82, a goal contributed every 82 minutes. I mean, you can't do much better than that. Can you get other players involved as well? Denke, of course. Can you get him clicking too? Denke, certainly. You brought him in for a pretty significant amount of money, MLS record, until Letty Lot broke it. But he has 11 goals as well. So the more they continue to build off each other, the more those two continue to click, I think the better off this team will be. Maybe the defense is a little questionable at times. I feel like that's a little bit of a discussion. Can they stay healthy, Cincinnati? But right now they've allowed 26 goals, which is not terrible, but not the best. So maybe that's a little bit of a talking point for them. But this is a team that, again, is built around the strengths of Evander, built around the strengths of Kevin Denke. And those two, like you said, have certainly been paying off for Cincinnati. And, when it's all said and done, this could be a team that could be, if not the top four, certainly atop the Supporter Shield standings if they keep things clicking. So Cincinnati, I feel like a lot of folks wrote them off early in the season, but they're right there in the thick of things.
And you know what's scary?
What's that?
They have a DP slot open.
Oh yeah, they have a DP slot open.
They can get another DP this summer to help them push towards that Supporter Shield in Leagues Cup, the playoffs. The ceiling for the Cincinnati team is so high that they have to be looked at as a very legitimate contender, both in the Shield and in MLS Cup.
Who do you pick up? What part of the roster do you address if you're Cincinnati?
Ooh, I mean,
do you go defense or?
I'm not sure I would use a DP slot on the defense, but I
mean, not a DP.
It's
slot,
tough because they're missing Hagelin. Hagelin is such an important part of that back line, but I mean, he's injured. I suppose that you would want to reinforce there. That would probably be the first item on the checklist is making sure that you can, have someone there, especially because, I mean, right now they're missing both Hagelin and Miles because Miles is with the U.S. men's national team. So maybe center back would be one of the areas I would look to upgrade. And then maybe because they play typically in like that 3-4-2-1, like the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So potentially you get another inside forward that operates alongside Evander, like a Diego Rossi type player that they can play off of each other. And then you have double trouble to worry about. That would probably be it. It's either that if you want to use the DP slot or potentially a winger that can operate as a wing back. Probably to how can you replace DeAndre Yedlin?
Yeah.
Or Lucas Engels. Lucas Engels also been pretty good. So I mean, for me, the pick would be an inside forward to operate alongside Evander on that that line of two, right in between the midfield line and the striker, which is Kevin Denke, one that plays right next to him. Because right now you have Dado Valenzuela, and he's okay, but you can do way, way better.
That's scary if they can get somebody up there with Evander or Denke, I should say. That attack would be even
two Evanders. Now we're getting out of hand.
That's definitely a good shout. Another DP slot. I mean, interested to see what Chris Albright does with that spot. So Cincinnati again, 3 matches in a row win, and Evander with another brace for the second straight match. Nashville can't stop winning. 11 straight unbeaten. We were speaking of Coach of the Year candidates, BJ Callahan has certainly put in the work. Nashville 2 points back of the Supporter Shield lead at this point in time. Leveling matches with Philadelphia. I mean, Nashville, I think outside of San Diego, outside of Vancouver, certainly the surprise of MLS this year.
Yeah, I mean, they've done everything right. BJ Callahan has worked wonders with this team so far. Has Hani Mukhtar almost back to that 2022 MLS MVP form. Has Sam Surridge at the best that we've seen him in a Nashville shirt. Golden Boot leader right now. And I mean, this team just clicks with him. And everything is really churning out. There's just not much else to say about this Nashville team. Like you said, they are one of the big surprises of the season. And I want to look at their roster kind of to see how it's composed, because they potentially Well, they already have 3 DPs because Walker
Yeah.
Zimmerman is a DP. That's interesting. Having Walker Zimmerman as a DP.
You buy him down and bring in another DP and really push yourself over the top, right?
You cannot buy
Can
down
you?
Walker
Oh,
Zimmerman,
you can.
but his contract runs out at the end of the season. So
Yeah.
if you want to set up for next season, you don't renew him on that DP contract, and you potentially have
Yeah.
room to bring in someone else. Because to be fair, Walker Zimmerman, he hasn't been at his best this season for me.
Yeah. He's been hurt.
And he's been hurt very often. So I'm not sure I would leave him on that DP contract much longer. But yeah, this Nashville side doing very, very well. 2 points off the lead in the Supporters Shield, very much in the thick of things. And I don't really see them slowing down, except, wait a minute, they face Philadelphia this weekend. And wait a minute, after that, they play Columbus. And 2
Oh.
games after that, they play San Diego. They have
Gauntlet.
a gauntlet. Oh, wait, Inter Miami's in there too.
Wow.
Whoa.
You're gonna learn a lot about this Nashville team in the next 4 matches for
Yes.
sure.
It is a gauntlet. So yeah, to recap. July 5th, that's this Saturday,
Yeah.
host Philadelphia. Then July
Should have some
12th, which is the
fireworks in
next
that one, if you know what I mean.
July 12th, which is the next Saturday, away to Inter Miami. July 16th, which is I believe that Wednesday, hosting Columbus.
Yeah.
July 19th, you're hosting Toronto, okay, whatever. But then July 25th, you're visiting San Diego.
Yeah.
That is a stretch where you're going to see the true resilience of this Nashville team. This is going to be the test. Are they real contenders or are they pretenders? Because if they can make it through this stretch and beat down some of these teams that are in that Shield race with them, they could potentially emerge as one of the favorites.
Let me ask you this, sort of real quick on Nashville. Walker Zimmerman, like you said, this is a contract year for him. It runs out. Walker Zimmerman is, I want to say 31, 32. If you're Atlanta United, 32. If you're Atlanta United, do you sign him to reinforce your back line in 2026?
I mean,
he's not a private
free
player,
agent.
but
If he's going to be a free agent, he might be one of the best free agent center backs on the market. It's similar to when Atlanta signed Derek Williams.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, when they got him, he was solid, and he still is decent. I think that'd be interesting to have Walker Zimmerman in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would not offer him anywhere near the contract that he was getting with Nashville. Definitely not a DP slot. But if you can get him on a decent contract and it depends really on how this Atlanta team looks going forward. We have that rumor of Enea Mihaj, who primarily plays as a right center back. So, yeah, he primarily plays as a right center back. And so if you have Zimmerman next to him in a back 4, I could see that working potentially.
Yeah.
It's tough, though. It's tough.
Yeah. I mean, you would like to have him. Obviously, he's from the area. Why not?
From my high school, so
yeah. But
Broncos.
No, if you get Mihai, of course, I like to think Noah Cobb as far as that backline pairing in 2020, center back pairing in 2026. So maybe you hold off. You maybe don't block Noah Cobb from
or Efrain Morales,
of course. So maybe we'll see, but certainly it's an interesting prospect. Either way, he'll be a very high demand player in 2026 among that free agent class. So one team, we talked about some teams that are doing well. One team that's down pretty bad right now is the Colorado Rapids. Colorado opened up a 3-0 lead against the New England Revolution. But if you're a New England fan, you know no lead is insurmountable. If you're an Atlanta fan for that matter. And I did it.
Hitting another soft spot, dude.
I know. But Rapids blow a 3-0 lead, and
they went rapidly downhill.
Oh, well done. The Rapids, they just haven't been able to put it all together. And it's tough because if they were a team, I feel like that, some folks are high on in 2025. I mean, they're still in the playoff chase. They're 8th right now with 20 matches played. But that's just a demoralizing result for them certainly points dropped. I mean, you have to have the mindset to see that out. I mean, it's 3 goals. You can't. You just can't blow a 3 goal lead by any stretch of the imagination. And exactly what happened with Colorado. Where does Colorado go from here is the question. Where does Nash or New England go from here? Definitely winning the sales of the Revs. Where do you see each team going from here?
Well, Colorado, it's tough when you don't have Georgie Mihailovic.
Mm,
Colorado runs on Georgie, so not having him was a big miss. But then again, you managed to score 3 goals without him. I don't think the issue in this game was not having the offensive production. I think it was not being able to keep it together at the back.
yeah,
Ultimately, that's what happened. You break down toward the end. I mean, the last 10 minutes regulation, you had a 2 goal lead.
yeah,
And so to blow that points to me to a lack of,
it's inexcusable.
yeah, a lack of concentration, a lack of really, you know, some leadership and structure kind of within the team to pick yourselves up and just say, okay, you know, we've come to the end of the game. We just got to
Yeah,
see this result out. And
yeah,
and that's something that this Colorado team is missing. And so for them, first of all, figure out how you're going to stop the gaps in at the back, how you're going to fill that in, and not give up these types of games because these are the types of results that you end up ruining at the end of the season.
mhm,
When you look back and you're like, oh, we were 1 or 2 points off from a playoff spot. We were so close. These are the games that you end up looking back on and saying
yeah,
we could have done so much better. And so hopefully when they have these players back, when you have Zach Steffen back, when you have uh, Mihailovic back, when you
mhm.
reinforce a little bit more of that back line, this team, it still has a very high ceiling, in my opinion. But you gotta figure out some of your issues in terms of how do you see these games out.
This is not a bad team by any stretch of
It's
the
not.
imagination. It's just very inconsistent. I mean, they have just 2 winning streaks of 2 matches this year, and they've not been able to get past that point. Again, they're above the playoff line, but if you're a Rapids fan, I don't think you're under any illusions that you're gonna really make any headway in the playoffs if you make it. This team, definitely, like you said, needs Georgie back, needs Steffen back. Maybe you can go on a little bit of a run, but it's on the players that you have on the pitch to keep their nerve and not, give up 3 goals in the second half. One of them, a long goal, could be by Sam Vines. If you're the Revs, though, this has to be winning your sales. I mean, you were coming off a 2 match losing streak against Cincinnati and Nashville. Granted, 2 of the better teams in the league at this point in time, but still hurts because those matches, if you look back at the end of the year, you missed the playoffs, and they're 4 points back of the playoff spot, granted, with 18 matches played, right? You're going to be wondering, gosh, I wish we'd have won these matches. Certainly a memorable result against Colorado. And if you're Revs, hopefully that's winning your sales because now you can say, hey, we have our attack clicking maybe just a little bit. We know what we can do. We know we can find the back of the net. We know that we could really put last year and the previous years behind us. Um, let's take that next step. Let's move forward. Let's really dig our heels in and win some matches going forward because this is not a team that certainly is one of the best in the league. Of course, they're outside of the playoff spot, but if you look at their roster, they have 2 DPs, Thomas Chancalay and Carlos Hill. At this point in time, they have 2 U22 players. So the decision for the front office is: do we want to go all in U22, or do we want to bring in a DP to help our fortunes out in the back end of the season? I feel like he go in the latter path. you go for that 3DP, 3U22 slot. So they have a little bit of flexibility as far as how they want to build their roster. And who knows if you can bring in a player or a couple of players that can make some magic happen for your team. Who knows? New England could be a team to watch during the summer transfer window coming up here in a few weeks. And I know that's going to be a big talking point, but yeah, we'll see how that comes out. We'll see how that breaks for the refs.
Yeah, and I agree with you. If I'm the New England front office, I'm looking to reinforce this team and prepare for a fight to get into the playoff, a real good playoff scrap, and potentially your run in the playoffs. Because looking at the table again, they're only let me see, 4 points off from the play-in game, and they have a game in hand. So very much a possibility. And depending on what you do in the summer, if you can really bring in some reinforcement to this team and add another dimension to it, this is a team that we could look back on and see a true contender for that playoff spot and really sneak in and potentially make a run. I mean, we in Atlanta are familiar with teams sneaking into the playoffs and making surprises, making stuff happen. You just can't give up on this season. If you are New England, you are still in it, and you have a decent foundation for even next season. I think it's funny because if New England hadn't gotten off to such a poor start to the season, they would be in a bit of a better position if you think about it.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of combination of bad luck and not really clicking the way that it was meant to at the start, but they've really gotten going. And so it's credit to them, credit to Caleb Porter, who earlier in the season we thought was going to be one of the first to get their pink slip, but he is hanging on and he is thriving. So fair play to you, Caleb Porter.
No, definitely. Another team not quite thriving, but back on the winning side of things, TFC. Very nice 3-0 win over Portland Timbers. I feel like it's the biggest win of the year for TFC. I mean, just their fourth win of the season. But, I mean, a good jumping off point with NYC coming in next up and then trips to Atlanta. But then you have a really tough stretch of matches at San Diego, at Nashville, at Charlotte, at Philadelphia. You want to go into that stretch, this stretch coming up if you're TFC with momentum. And I think a win against Portland does that. You're still a long way off from playoffs. You're nowhere near playoffs at this point, 11 points back of the playoff spot, I should say. But they have 2 DPs. They have 3 U22 players, U22 slots. You don't have a lot of flexibility because you have 2 massive contracts that you have to take care of. But can you find some wiggle room? Can you bring in a player that can really affect your team? Can you get the Italians playing at the highest level? I think if you can do that, maybe TFC can make a little push up the table and get themselves back into get themselves into playoff places.
Yeah, again, they have possibilities of slim possibilities because again, they are third from the bottom of the East. Funny enough, they're equal on points with Atlanta, so that's not a good thing.
July 12th.
Honestly, they're 13th. So for me, it's not looking as good as I was talking about with New England. New England, I see very serious possibilities of getting into the playoffs. Toronto, it's hard for me to really see it at this point. Like you said, you have those contracts with Insigne and Bernadeschi that they were trying desperately in the offseason to find a move for Insigne to find a way to move these guys on, and they're under contract until June 2026. Or sorry, Insigne is under contract until June 2026. Bernadeschi's contract runs through 2026. So at the very least, you are sticking it out with them for the rest of the season. and hoping and praying that somehow you can find a way to kind of move on. This chapter needs to come to an end for Toronto
Yeah.
so that they can kind of reinvent themselves and move on from there. Because to me, uh, this is a team that we've seen they don't really need Insigne. They don't really need Bernadeschi. They
Right.
have they have some talent in there that can work for them. And then they just need to find the right pieces to really put together and Robin Fraser can really be cooking with this team here. So for me, it's kind of a survive
Yeah.
mode for Toronto. Uh, but yeah, I don't really see them honestly competing for much this season.
Portland, that's definitely a tough loss for them. I mean, they're still
Mm.
fourth in the Western Conference table, but Portland are a team, 8, 5, and 6 at this point. Haven't really, like I said earlier, been able to really get over the hump. They're pretty inconsistent. You mentioned Antony is hurt, so they're kind of waiting on him to get back. I guess, what do you make of Portland moving forward? How do they bounce back after this loss? They have New England coming up and the Seattle on the road. How do they bounce back, do you think?
It's tough because,
No.
like I said, Anthony's a big miss for them. He was having one of the best seasons of his career, especially with Portland for sure, but of his career. And so going to Toronto and taking that kind of loss, uh, yeah, you just gotta kind of pick your head back up and go at this New England game. You're going back to Providence Park. They're strong at Providence Park. They're strong at home. They make
Yeah.
home advantage count. And
Yeah.
so go in there, get your 3 points, get the job done, and uh, get back on track. You don't really have as much room for Portland uh, to slip. They are in that fourth playoff spot, and they really want to stay above that line because again, fourth place and above gets you home advantage in the
Yeah.
playoffs,
Yeah.
and you want that. That's valuable, and so I could see them because you host New England, then you go to St. Louis, who aren't great. That's a winnable game. You
Yeah.
host RSL. Those are all games that I think Portland can get the result in, and they should. Um, yeah. Again, missing Anthony is tough, but David DaCosta is still a very class player.
Mhm.
Uh, he hasn't been exactly the Evander replacement, but he has worked to some extent fulfilling that role. Losing Jonathan Rodriguez for the season is brutal. Yeah, there's just a lot of bad luck for Portland for
Yeah.
the season so far. But there's no reason to believe that they can't keep this going and potentially uh, do something in the playoffs once some of their guys get back and once they reinforce a little bit over the summer.
So we talked about teams or Portland having a strong home field advantage, home pitch advantage. Chicago, on the other hand, don't really have a strong home pitch advantage. We talked about earlier their only home win going into this past match day was against Atlanta United. They opened up 3-0 lead over Charlotte FC. Charlotte scored twice through Pep Biel and Toklamati in the second half, and they make a match out of it, but Chicago ultimately wins 3-2. We it's hard to believe we were talking about early in the season about Charlotte being one of the best teams in MLS. They're a shell of themselves at this point. It's just really bad. 9 out of their last 11 lost, 3 matches in a row lost. This team that's just fallen off in a magnificent way. And you know, if you're David Tepper, who's been very quick to pull the trigger on coaches, I mean, do you give Dean Smith time, or what do you think of your Tepper?
Yeah, I don't think you're sending Dean Smith away.
I mean, considering it's David Tepper, I mean, they're
Well,
what, three
yeah, but
coaches in after 3 seasons?
I mean, where is Charlotte right now? They're 10th. Oh wow. I remember several match
Wow.
days ago they were top of the East.
Yeah.
That was wild, and they've just dropped off hard. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm still not firing Dean Smith. I think they have quality on their roster. Dean Smith knows how to get the best out of his players, and he did so at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Um, and again, he's operating on just the two DPs right now. They have room to bring in another one over the summer, and that could potentially help them in that playoff scrap at the end of the season. But yeah. Oh, and selling Patrick Ajimong, if that does end up happening,
Mm,
that is amazing
yeah.
business. If they can get $5 million for him,
Yeah.
it's really good business. Um, so I would assume that if they were to use a DP slide, it would probably be on a striker to replace Ajimon, which would work out pretty well for them. I think.
Yep.
I think that would bump them up a little bit because Ajimong is good, but I mean, if you can get someone on the level of players like Sam Surridge, on the level of your Ty Baribos and these types of players,
Yeah.
um, that could be exactly what Charlotte needs to really take things to the next level. And there are issues at the back. There are issues at the back for Charlotte. That's
Mhm.
where the alarm bells are at.
Yeah.
Um, they have conceded multiple goals in several of their last games, conceded 2 to SKC, conceded these 3 to Chicago in this game, 2 to
Yeah.
Philadelphia, and then a couple games before that, 4 to the Red Bulls, 4 to Chicago in May. It's just not really solid back there. And so you got to figure out how you're going to shore things up back there. Kind of like Colorado to an extent,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's what I'm looking at for Charlotte. But if you can get that striker again, if you can get that DP striker and just start scoring endlessly and start really winning these games with these
Yeah.
4-3 score lines with the 3-2s, the 4-3s, the 5-4, these types of games, then maybe you don't really have that much to worry about at the back. Maybe offense is the best defense.
Yeah. We'll see. um. I was in Charlotte, but Chicago certainly a big win for them. Having lost their last two matches, both at home to Nashville and Philadelphia. Like I said, just the one home win coming into this past match day. Now they have another one to the record, and for a Chicago team that have been looking to shake off what's been just a rough past few years for them. I mean, they're still in eighth place, so that's a key win for them to stay in the playoff race and continue to build upon sort of what Greg Berhalter is looking to build. I mean, it's going to take a long way. I mean, old habits die hard, and they still have a lot of players over the past few years that have been with the team during its losing days, but they have tremendous talent. Zinkernagel was an MLS all-star selection. They have Kuipers, of course. Gutierrez, one of the top young midfielders in the league. U.S. men's national team player, not with the Gold Cup, but has got a men's national team assignment. So there's talent on the Chicago team, and Greg Berhalter really has a chance to continue to shape this team as not just the head coach, but as a sporting director. They have a DP slot available, so they could go DP with Bamba and Kuipers already in the fold, or they can go U22. They have 3 U22 players currently signed to the roster right now. So interested to see. They declared for U22 at the beginning of the season. Interested to see what they do when the summer transfer window rolls around. I believe they can change that, right? That's just their declaration for the winter
They can
transfer
change
window.
it
They
during
can
the
change
summer.
it. So interested to see what Greg Berhalter decides to do. Does he say, "Hey, let's stick with a U22 player, 2 DP U22 approach, and bring in a young player, maybe a proven talent from overseas that can help this team," or does he say, "Hey, let's bring in the third DP. Let's try to boost ourselves in the spot that we need help in. Maybe a winger or something like that. I feel like sky's kind of the limit for Chicago and Berhalter as he tries to continue to put his stamp on this team, not only on the pitch, but from a sporting standpoint as the sporting director of this team as well.
Absolutely. And if I am Greg Berhalter, I am looking at that DP slot and seeing the possibilities of bringing a top tier number 10.
Mm,
You already have two very strong wingers in Jonathan Bamba and Philip Zinkernagel.
right.
And so if you can get a guy that can bring those guys into play a lot more and kind of dictate the play in the center, distribute to those three, to them and
Yeah.
to Hugo Kuipers, you potentially have one of the scarier offenses in the East. And that's significant for Chicago as they look to make their first playoff appearance since 2017.
Yeah.
And I think they'll make it. And I think you
Yeah.
reinforce the squad in that way. You bring in that top tier number 10, and this team climbs a little bit before the end of the season. I think they avoid the play-in game if
Yeah.
they bring in that top tier 10 and really kind of grind it out towards the end of this season.
I don't know why I said bring in a winger. Like you said, they already have two wingers. I don't know why I said winger, but they can bring in somebody
Yeah,
like a 10, like he said. So, but yeah, there's room. Point is, there's room for Berhalter to do some things to this roster, more things to this roster, and they're another team to watch during the summer transfer window. I think Chicago is. Speaking of watch, our Sweetwater Brewing Company matches to watch for match day 22 coming up. What do you got? What are you watching, Henry?
well, for me it was between two, and you got the other one, but for me it has to be the Sunday night soccer clash of Seattle Sounders versus the Columbus Crew. We're talking about a Seattle side that has just come off their Club World Cup appearance, defeated Austin 2-0, and now next up on the chopping block is Columbus.
Yeah.
They're gonna want to show some of that experience, and they're boasting like, "Oh yeah, we took on Atletico Madrid, we took on PSG, right? We took on some of these clubs, and they have that experience now, and they want to take this further into the season and really use that as a platform. I think they can do that. And Columbus is going to be their first real big test. This Columbus side again is looking to continue winning, is looking to continue adding points as they make their claim at the top of the Shield. We said they were 3 points off of that first place spot.
Yeah.
Well, Seattle has been a highly inconsistent team throughout the season. So they'll want to try to get those 3 points there. Those would be an important 3 points on the road. Seattle, we're talking about a team that is trying to get into the top four of the Western Conference. They are right below Portland in that fourth spot. And so, yeah, this is an important step for them to really get a solid spot into the playoffs. And looking at the soccer of it, they're just two teams that play very, very good soccer.
Yeah.
And so I'm just interested to see how this goes.
I picked Nashville, Philly. That's going to be a blockbuster. Nashville, Philly, two of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Sam Surridge, obviously Henny Mukhtar for Nashville, Philadelphia, the talent they bring to their table as well. This is two of the best teams in the league by far. This is certainly a potential Eastern Conference final in 2025. Barrybo for Philadelphia, obviously challenging for the Golden Boot, 13 goals, 3 behind Surridge, who has 16. So Barrybo versus Surridge, that's going to be primetime television right there. 8:30 kickoff from Geodis Park. Nashville going for 12 straight unbeaten. Philadelphia maybe a little bit frustrated after seeing their unbeaten streak broken at the hands of the Columbus Crew. But I would not be surprised, Henry, if Nashville SC and the Philadelphia Union are playing for a spot in the MLS Cup final this fall. Two really good teams.
Certainly a lot of interesting candidates for MLS Cup on both sides. And that's, I think, like I said earlier in the show, that's what makes the season so interesting, is that you really don't know what's going to happen right now. There's no clear favorite.
Yeah. Going to be a fun match day coming up. Very fun match day coming up. I feel it. Like and subscribe on Facebook if you watch, or YouTube if you're watching us on YouTube. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We're on Facebook too. You can like our page there. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart. If you can, leave us a review there. Rate us 5 stars. We definitely do appreciate it in advance. Your support of Scarts and Spikes, your support of MLS Monday. We'll be back on Wednesday night to talk about Atlanta United versus DC United, which could be very bad or very good. Neither team is very good, but we'll see which team can be the least bad on Saturday night.
The battle of mid.
The battle of, well, not even mid.
Not even mid, just bad.
But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Follow us on social media, Scars to Letter and Spikes on X, Instagram and Threads at Scars and Spikes, and on Blue Sky at Scars and Spikes.com. I'm at SH Wrights, Henry S. SHA Higita. Surf to us, follow us, and I got nothing else. Do you have anything else, sir?
Not really. Just chilling, I guess.
Fluminense or Inter Milan. I know you talked about that briefly.
Tough week for Inters.
More like outer.
That's so bad.
The bad news for Fluminense is they most likely will have to play Man City in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, that's where the road ends, unfortunately.
Yeah. The dream ends in Orlando. In the happiest place on earth.
Madrid Juventus tomorrow. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
3 p.m.
Winner takes on. Did you read, by the way,
Felipe's article?
Friend of the show, Felipe Cardenas.
I haven't read it, but I've seen it. I'm going to read it right after the show. Pretty
much, not to spoil it, but it is a crap show to get out of.
I mean, here's the thing. That was where the Copa America final was played, and that's where you had all the scenes. Yes, that's where you had all the scenes of people like jumping through the vents and freaking like breaking down the barriers and stuff. All the Colombia freaking lose at the end, which sucks. But yeah, I mean, it's been a tough ride for that venue, and if I'm not mistaken, that is a venue for the World Cup next year.
Oh gosh, you're right.
Yeah, a lot of stuff for them to address, man.
I'm not ready to hear about someone getting seriously injured at a World Cup match next year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's really bad. But yeah, read Felipe's article in The Athletic about it.
Yep.
Miami just needs a better public transportation system. So fans will have to walk like 2 miles to a parking lot.
Oof. That's brutal.
It's insane. All right, everyone. See you next time.
See ya.